This back to school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. I remember when my sister begged for the shiniest backpack guaranteed to spark success. Pricey, and it was gone by October. Skip the splurge. Amazon's back to school hub has notebooks, pens, even goal setting journals at wallet friendly prices and fast delivery, so you can focus on chasing bigger dreams. So remember, with Amazon's low back to school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them.
Learning to appreciate who you are, the quirks, the weirdness, all these things. But for some reason, as a kid, the place I did feel comfortable in myself was track. So post Princeton, I never gave up the dream. In these 12 years, I've had times where even though I still had the dream or the goal, nothing around my life made pursuing that dream make sense. There were times where I had all but given up. People who are not delusional would have been like, all right, you know what, let's just, let's just call it what it is. What drove me to get back each time was like, I'm not trying to go out like this. This isn't what I wanted the story to end with. Hey, this is Russell Dinkins. I'm the Executive Director of the Tracksmith Foundation and a current elite athlete, and you are listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers. So I've known this week's guest since my freshman year at Princeton University. Just how we met or how we were actually introduced to each other is something we're going to discuss earlier on in the podcast, so I'll leave that story for you all to hear. My buddy, my dance partner, my all-around fun friend. Life has taken us down different paths, but whenever we did see each other post-Princeton, it was always a time to be had. So I'm just so excited. It's such a pleasure to have Russell Dinkins on the show today. Russell Dinkins is an athlete, national track and field advocate, and executive director of the Tracksmith Foundation, an NCAA champion and 6-time Ivy League champion while at Princeton. Dinkins' advocacy has helped save 4 Division I track and field programs by leveraging media and historic applications of Title IX and other legal strategies to see the reinstatement of over 200 athletic opportunities. And just recently, Russell celebrated 15 years of running 1 minute 48 seconds in the 800 meters, a mark that he first achieved during his freshman year of college. And for people who don't know, like track and field, that's a fast time, great time. And it was actually this series of social media posts that he posted about this moment that caught my attention and made me reach out to him to have him come on the show. It's been in my heart lately to have guests on the show that are just really living, revitalizing, figuring out this dream of theirs. And sometimes it's a dream that they've been holding on to for a long time and it hasn't panned out the way they might have thought. There's been a lot of ups and downs. And so seeing people talk about this dream driving in real time is what I want you guys to get out of this conversation. At the essence of Russell's story is how he never let his boyhood dream of being an elite athlete go to rest, despite all that he's been through to make it happen. His story is one of resilience, adversity, perseverance, joy, and it's just remarkably inspiring. If this is your first time listening, please make sure you're following Dreams and Drive on all social media platforms. And also, please sign up for our newsletter, The Road Trip, by going to dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's get into this episode with Russell. Russell Dinkins, welcome to Dreams and Drive. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is cool too because you've been doing this for
Almost 10 years.
years, and
Yeah.
wow, 10 years?
Well,
Wow.
2016 is when I launched it. So it's almost 10 years.
That's commitment and that's dedication.
A
Congratulations
little
on that.
delusional. I'm a little delulu.
Yeah,
But
I
you knew that
mean,
from Princeton. You know, I'm a little,
well, I
I
think
got some screws. It's not there. Right.
yeah, but we're all but we all are a little delulu. Yeah, and for the audience, yeah, man, you can have your moment. My mom always says, but but don't let that moment have you. So like, if you're out of the car, give yourself grace and permission. But okay, I got out the car. It's okay. But I also can give myself permission to get back in the car.
I didn't do it, but I had like got the list of all the kids who were doing it. And I think I
Yeah.
looked you up and you were, for context, guys, in in high school, I was such a track nerd. I loved track. I like eat, slept, breathed track, but I was horrible. Like I was not, you was never gonna see me on anyone's national stage or anything. Like I couldn't even win my own local meets, you know? So it was just I came in third in my freshman. I remember freshman hurdles, I came in third, but there was only three people in that freshman finals race. So just to give y'all some context on my actual career, but I just love the sport. And so when I saw Russell's name, I looked him up and I'm like, oh, okay, he got his times. He has great times. And what was it when I met you? Was that the first thing I said to you, or did I know
No,
who
so
you
yeah,
were?
yes, you knew who I was. Before we met in person, you DM'd me on Facebook.
No, I did not.
You DM me on Facebook. I mean, I can go back and probably find
Okay,
it.
okay, don't
But
do
you,
that. Don't do that.
but you DM'd me on Facebook. It was like, hey, I don't think you know who I am, but I'm a big track fan, and I know you're starting, freshman year at Princeton. I'm going to be in your class, da 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 da. And so I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then I
And
met
like
you
we
like,
were friends the entire time. I called you
yeah,
my dance buddy, right? Like we just
yeah.
had such a great time at Princeton. But you know what? Before we get into Princeton, I like to kind of start off thinking about who we were as children, and I think that can kind of help us get into this conversation. Who was the young Russell, and like what was really inspiring you about the world?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the young Russell was very inquisitive. You know, very happy-go-lucky. I was very into science. Loved to kind of like play outside, climb trees, very active. Um, you know, I knew that I was kind of a smart kid, and I kind of like leaned into that. Not in a snooty or snobby way, but just in a, I enjoy excelling at school kind of way. Um, Track came into the picture at a very young age. I was 6 years old when I started track. And the way that it started for me, I was walking from the subway um, with my grandma. We live in Philly, so we have subways. And there was a team that was fundraising for their summer travel, and they were selling water ice, which is like a local, Philadelphia treat. For those who don't know, it's kind of like Italian ice, but it's softer. Yeah, but it's a local thing here in Philly. And They gave my grandma a flyer, and my grandma gave my mom the flyer. And my mom, kind of like Raina, loved track and field when she was a kid, but like did not have many opportunities to participate in it. And she didn't even know that youth track existed. I mean, this is in the 90s, access to, internet wasn't, as, ubiquitous as it is now. And, these teams didn't have any internet presence back then. Like this is like 95 we're talking about. So when she got this flyer, she's like, "Oh my God!" And she like called and kept calling. This was during the summer, so the team was traveling a lot, so she wasn't able to get in touch with the team secretary until several weeks later. And then the team secretary said, "Hey, we're in the middle of our summer travel, but cross country starts in the fall." And so my first track practice
As
was
a
actually cross
6-year-old.
country as a 6 year old, was cross country, running up a big behind hill. I will use a different word, but I'm gonna keep it PG for the listeners. Big behind hill, and I cried. I was like, I don't want to do this no more. I hate this. I don't want to do it. I remember I went home and cried. I was like, Mom, I don't want to go back. And I really appreciate my mom for many things, but um, for this in particular, she was like, well, no, if you start something, you're going to finish it. So we're going to finish this season. I cried before every single track practice, like ball, boohoo, oh, I want to go. She was like, you better get in that car and go. You know what I mean? I got dead last in all the cross country competitions because at that age group, it's 8 and under. So I was 6 running against 8 year olds. There's a big,
Yeah,
there's a
and
big difference.
there's a big difference between a 6 and 8-year-old.
Right. And like the course was a mile and a half. I mean, putting out a 6 year old to run a mile and a half with a big hill in the middle of the course, I was getting my patootie kicked. And yeah, and but as slowly, I got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. I didn't really start seeing kind of the progress until about a year later, I started beating some of the kids, and I started getting like eighth and seventh and like fifth. And then eventually I started getting like third and then second. And then by the time I was eight, I was one of the best kids in the country and actually won the a national title at like for 8-year-olds. So, going from, getting last, 2 years prior to winning the 1500 for 8-year-olds and in North Carolina, was a big thing. And then, kind of kept going from there.
So, looking back at it, because you probably wouldn't have been able to reflect on this as a 6-year-old, now as a 30 something, right?
Mhm.
How do you think that moment, how has changed the trajectory of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it has changed the trajectory of my life in huge ways. It really has provided access to pretty much all the opportunities that I've had, opportunities to travel, opportunities for education. I went to a pretty solid elementary school. It was a private school. It was an Afrocentric private school in Philadelphia. Shout out to them. They, provided us a good, foundational education, and also kind of instilled in us a sense of being proud of who we are as, as Black people, which I really appreciate. Looking back, there were some things that we were doing, which is like, I think they're making this up. Like we used to have these we used to have these things called seasonal celebrations where, we would dress up in like, the color of the season, and then they would have like drummers and like people in
But you
Stonewall.
remember that. That's what's so
I
important,
do remember
right?
that. I do remember that. And then we would like use different terms. Like we didn't say Mr. Simon or Miss Jill. We would say Mathora or Mathori first name. And it was like mother and father. So it was like,
Uh,
mother, like Mathora Pamela, Mathori Kamal. I mean, these are actually my teachers.
yeah,
And Kamal was his first name. Pamela was her first name.
yeah.
And they would tell us, yeah, these are Swahili terms. When I went to Kenya as an adult, I was like, yeah, Mathori, Mathora. They're like, what? What are you talking about? That's not the word.
But you
I
know what? I
think.
love that you share this because I just think about like now that I'm a parent, it also makes me think about like the love your mother had for you, right? And
Mm,
for her to be so intentional about making sure you're in a place that provided you the foundation for who you became as a person. Because I think even going to a place like Princeton, and we can talk about that, like Princeton was not easy for everybody. Like, we've all had our ups and downs and struggles just in so many different types of ways. For both of us, I feel like I don't want to speak for you. I know you were an athlete, but you also were a dancer on campus and you had these communities. But for you, like, I guess maybe before we get here, the dream, like, what was that dream for you as a kid? Was it to be like this elite star athlete, or did you have other things there? And then I think we can talk about Princeton.
yeah, I think it was twofold. Just to go back real quick on the
Uh-huh.
education bit. So after that the Afrocentric kind of elementary school, I went to a charter school for my first year of middle school. That school was not very strong
Killed your dreams. I heard
educationally.
some things about heard some
Yeah,
things about charter
yeah, no,
schools.
it wasn't great. I mean, that was the first time I got bullied, like severely. I actually started like dumbing myself down because again, I before I used to enjoy engaging, educationally, but at that time period, especially as a sixth grade, I was what 11, 12-year-old boy, it wasn't cool to be a male and be really active in class. It wasn't cool to be a male and show kind of outward kind of intellectual curiosity in that way. So I started kind of like diminishing that. And, I started getting C's and D's, like, because I wanted to try to like fit in. I got suspended because I had to fight somebody. Like, yeah, like, I'm not a fighter. But he hit me
I
first. So,
hope you won. I hope you won.
oh yeah, I had to chase him down and finish it. But but track, saved, that trajectory because around that same time, one of the other parents in the club track sphere, he worked at a elite private school out in the county called Germantown Academy, and his job was to be the director of diversity. Shout out to Mr. Keon Gregory, and he went to some of the kids who he knew were like, pretty, academically talented. And he came to me and my mom and said, hey, there's this really great school. I know that this, it's really expensive, but they have great financial aid for, families who need it. And I applied and, luckily, through the application process, they saw that I was, a guy with a lot of potential. And even though I had really, bad grades at the charter school, they recognized that that was circumstantial, and they accepted me. And I excelled there at Germantown Academy. And then after that, I had an opportunity to go to boarding school, and I excelled there, Wilbraham and Monson Academy in Massachusetts. And then that gave me the platform to apply and to get into Princeton. Had it not been for track to provide those pathways, and at Germantown Academy, it was like, they knew, I mean, I wasn't required to run track, but it was kind of like, it was an expectation. And so I did run track at Germantown Academy, and I ran track at Wilbraham and Monson Academy. And that gave me, kind of the ability, you know, to get there educationally. I know I said I was going to put a pin in the question that you just posed. That question was about um, dreams. So I think I had two dreams as a kid. One was to get to college. Like, I'm from inner city Philadelphia, black male, um, from a working class, background, working class community. There weren't a ton of examples of that, happening. And so, I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to go to college through running. And my track and field team, that was one of the explicit goals, using the track team as a college access vehicle. So that was kind of, a goal, from the beginning.
All right, we're going to take a quick break for a word from this week's episode sponsors. This back to school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. Dream drivers, let's talk smart money moves. One year, my cousin insisted on a designer binder that cost more than my LLC filing fee, then left it on the bus. Had I checked Amazon first, I'd have scored the same vibe for less, plus everything else in one cart. Their back to school storefront lets you filter by grade, color, or budget. Reviews steer you clear of duds, and fast shipping gets it to you before your next brainstorming session. Save cash, save time, fuel the hustle. So remember, with Amazon's low back to school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them.
Get yourself ready for a trip through McDonald land. There's fig-shaped volcanoes, you'll even find a French fry thatch. Now just turn around and see if you won't find a hamburger patch as you're heading for.
Order the McDonaldland meal today and get the Mount McDonaldland shake with your very own character souvenir kit.
A secondary goal that I had was to use track, as a way of, being the best I could be. And I believed, as a kid that, I could, be one of the best in the country and in the world
Where did the
and
confidence
progress.
come from? I had to interrupt you there. Like, where do you think that came from? And why is that so important, that belief?
I don't know where that confidence came from, to be honest, because,
Or how did you keep the confidence? Do you know?
I have to, I think the answer will come to me as I speak
Okay.
because, um, yeah, because I mean, as a
Was it
kid,
a
I was like,
knowing? And I say that because I speak to a lot of
yeah,
people, Russell, and I feel like we all have these things in us, right? And
yeah,
sometimes the answer really is just like, it's just a knowing and you can't explain it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I feel like, I'll give a little story. Like, so I won two youth titles, in AAU, which is one of like the youth leagues, national titles. I won one when I was 8, and then I didn't win another one until I was 18. Individual titles. I won like relay titles and stuff like that. There were times, particularly around, 11, 12, 13, I didn't I didn't develop like puberty wise until a little later. So some of the kids I was running against, they were men at like 12, and I was still like boy at 12.
hmm
and I was getting my butt kicked. And throughout that entire period, I just kind of had this quiet belief like, okay, I'm going to get there eventually. It may not be now, but I'm going to get there eventually. And some of those same kids who were destroying me at 11, 12, I beat by the time, I won the title at 18. And there are two names I can think of, in particular, that, they were killing me, just a couple years prior, but then I eventually was able to catch up. I don't know. I think it was just I think it was just this inner, just like belief that I was like, no, I'm gonna get there. And it wasn't like a cocky thing. It wasn't like it's just kind of like no, I'm gonna make it just like when I went to my boarding school. My boarding school um, did not have a very strong track program. They hadn't had somebody go D1 from their school in decades. I mean, like maybe like 40 years or something like that. And so there was no precedent for, anybody going, D1 through track. And the school records were very slow when I got there. I mean, the school record for the 800 on the boys' side was 208, which is super slow for anybody who knows. Like 208 is a
Yes.
very good time for a high school, girl. A high school boy, typically you want to see, someone running, close to 2 minutes or below. And for a school record, it should be, maybe below 2 minutes, I mean, 159, 158, something
Faster
like
than I
that.
would have ran at 800 though.
Yeah, I mean, no, Rand, if you ran 208,
I
you
know,
would have
I'm just
been
playing. I'm just playing.
recruited.
I
You
probably
would
would have
have
had a
been
chance, right? I would have had a chance
no,
at
no,
something.
208, you would have been a top recruit. Like back then, like 208 you would have been top, you would have been top 10 in the country, on the girl side. 208 as a boy, it's good job. It's like, oh, good
Mm.
job. That was a nice run, so that's just to put some context around it. But when I went to the boarding school, I was very confident. I was like, no, I'm gonna get recruited, you know, like, and it wasn't, again, it wasn't a cocky thing. It was just no, I know this is going to happen. I know it's possible. So I'm going to make it happen. The funny thing is, as a kid, in other aspects, I was not very confident. I had times when I felt very unsure of myself. And I struggled with this in Princeton too, which I think a lot of people who knew me at Princeton, you know, would be surprised to hear. I mean, I struggled a lot with like feelings of inadequacy, kind of feelings of, the kind of the imposter syndrome thing, not being very confident. Um, I mean, I had times when I got really, really like depressed, and felt like, I wasn't talented, didn't have, like all these like negative things. Um, and I think that it puzzles folk because, outwardly, I'm like, like ball of energy, positive person.
Very extroverted,
Yeah,
right?
extroverted. Yeah, I excelled, in track, at Princeton. I was involved in a lot of arts activities. I was involved in volunteer things. I was a big presence on campus. And yet I still felt small in a lot of ways. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, as a kid, I had times that I felt like that significantly. I remember one time as a kid, and again, I thank my mom for this. I was going through a really tough period as a kid at this time, and I remember she stood me in front of the mirror and said, "Okay, tell yourself you love yourself." And I couldn't say those words, and
Don't
we
make me
I
cry.
know, and it was like I was crying, my mom was crying. It was rough, and I was like, I don't think. She was like, well, like say you love yourself, and I was like, I don't, I don't know if I can say that, and it was rough, and kind of learning to appreciate who you are, the quirks, the weirdness, all these things. It took time, but for some reason, as a kid, the place I did feel comfortable in myself was track.
And
Um,
sometimes all you need, and I'm not trying to diminish the other parts of ourselves, but sometimes, like, if
yeah,
you have like just one thing that you can be yourself in, sometimes that can be like a relief. Like at least like there's just
mhm.
one thing, and then that thing grows eventually because it becomes the foundation for all these other things that happen that you might not ever have thought would have happened for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. And
Yeah.
this
So,
is so weird because I think I don't know. Like I told Russ we're gonna go and vibe to this interview, right? And I think one of the things that I'm thinking about a lot is like as a mother of two boys now, right? And like I have my first son Axel. He's just like he's this ball of energy, and he's in piano now. And like when I tell you he was practicing for a little recital and he got on stage, I posted it. People thought he did well, but that boy, he did. He did three notes. He did not. But afterwards, when he came off the stage, I think he thought like he did like I was like, yes, Axel, right? He had this like joy about him that when you saw it, I'm like, I don't ever want to diminish that, right? But it also gave me this feeling of like there can be things that I have no control over that might diminish his spirit, right? That might do
mm,
that. But just knowing that he has maybe one little ball of confidence for me of just saying, like, I'm going to be here for you can be that thing. And I know your mom has been like a great support for you in your own life. I don't want to derail this too much. I'm going to start getting emotional talking about kids and all that stuff. But the idea of Princeton kind of like, and you going through these struggles, but also, going through struggles, but then you're also excelling, athletically,
mhm,
right? And one of the things that when I think of you, Russell, I think of you as like a hustler, right? Like, you know how you said like
mm.
you had this knowing that you were gonna figure it out? Like to me, you always seem to be like, I'm gonna figure out a way though. I'm gonna make a way. And I know like even graduating, like you made your own role at remember career services?
Yeah. Yep.
Like graduated, everyone's like looking for jobs, and here you were like, I'm gonna make a job. And I think it's just the theme of you seeing a need and you standing up for whether it's yourself or for others.
Mm.
Let's talk about that, right? Because I think that's a theme that can kind of be multiplied in different areas of your life. Do you agree? Am I wrong here?
No,
Is
no,
there some
you're
little
no,
nuance here that we
you're
should?
you're you're preaching. So thank you for that. No, and like sometimes you don't necessarily recognize kind of, you know, what you do or the impact that you have. And so, it is nice to hear that reflected from someone else. And I mean, everything you said is correct, but it's so funny because even today, I had a little like moment of like melancholy because I actually been having it for a couple of days actually, but I was just thinking about like the things that I don't have, quote unquote. And it's like, okay, you know, yeah, I could have made some choices where I would have, more financial resources. I could have made certain choices where I would have had, different life experiences, by now. And just was thinking about kind of lack as opposed to thinking about, what I have in abundance and also the opportunities that are, before me and that I have the capacity to create, the reality that I want to see. Yeah, so it's just yeah, thank you for that because sometimes it's easy to kind of not recognize the things you are doing well or the things that the gifts that you do have. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I was
go
gonna say
ahead.
too, I think also like for me, it's like this idea of comparison, right? Because like
Mm,
especially coming from a place like Princeton and you see all these people's and their trajectories, it's like, damn, like why didn't I do that? Or why is this not happening for me? But one of the things I realize is like there's something so uniquely special about all of us that like nobody like sometimes we see what we're doing as so small, but it really is big if you think about it, right? Like I was in preparation for this interview, and please correct me if I'm, not 100% right here. But like through your advocacy work, especially in track, you've saved over how many track and field programs, or you've helped, what's the
yeah,
scale?
yeah,
And say the real numbers, and I just want to talk about numbers and just when we think about relativeness, right? Because it might not seem huge, but when you think
right.
about impact, it is.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no.
talk your shit
So
a little bit, Russell. What have you
all
been able
right,
to
all right.
do
I'll
for
talk. I'll talk my shit.
for the field of track? I mean, yeah, for the field of track, the track of field. Yes, yes. For the
For the field of track, the track and field, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So yeah, so what Rand is referring to, um, Yeah, a few years ago, I kind of found myself the leader of a movement to save D1 programs that were being eliminated. It started with an article. Brown University announced that they were cutting their track and field program. And they were going to be replacing it with sailing, essentially. And then 2 days later, George Floyd happened, and then Brown, just like everybody else, made the statement about how, they wanted to be in support of like Black lives and, to right the historic wrongs, and they're going to be doing the deep institutional soul searching. And I was like, wait, you're doing this 2 days after you cut, your team that has like the most black athletes on it besides football. It had more black athletes on it than four of their other teams combined, and you're replacing it with sailing, a
And
team
if
that's
they cut
100%
people
women.
who are in scholarships, does that mean their scholarships are gone too?
So the Ivy League doesn't have scholarships, but what
Okay.
it does offer, if you are a varsity team, that varsity team gets recruitment slots. So that means
Mm.
the kids that were getting recruited to run track were going to be replaced with kids that were going to be recruited to sail. And so think about how diverse socioeconomically and also racially track and field is. And think about how racially and socioeconomically homogenous sailing is. And so I wrote a Medium article because I was pissed. I was like, yo, this is crazy. And I called them out. I think the title of it was Brown, if you were serious about racial justice, you would not be cutting your track and field program. And it called the school out. And, and it was weird because it was funny. It was still like high level, but I also didn't sugarcoat stuff. It was like, no, I basically called them racist without using
This
those
is
words.
June 2nd, 2020. You said in
Yeah,
your subheadline, Brown's track and field team has more black men on its roster than Brown's lacrosse, baseball, hockey, and crew teams combined! Exclamation point.
exactly. And so, and I mentioned how, the school has a legacy, benefited from the slave trade. And so they have a obligation to ensuring that opportunities go to those who are the descendants of that crime against humanity. And so yeah, it thoroughly embarrassed the university. They reversed course about a week after I posted the article, and then after that, other teams that were getting cut because COVID, there was just a lot of changes, and a
Yeah.
lot of universities were looking to cut their track and field programs. The parents, alumni, and students of those teams started reaching out to me, and I had no organizing experience. And even with Brown, I didn't really organize. I just wrote an article.
Hmm.
I won't say just, but I wrote an article. That was my
Yeah.
contribution. But, sometimes when the opportunity knocks, you say, okay. So I was very transparent. Okay, guys, I'll help you. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll help you. And next thing you know, I was organizing. I was leading groups of alumni, students, and parents, organizing, a media strategy, like developing, social strategy, like imaging for
Yeah.
the teams. I was building a legal strategy. I flew down to Clemson and led a march and like gave a speech on like the president's steps. Yeah, it was kind of nuts. And so we ended up saving three additional programs, and it ended up saving 200 student opportunities. But it's even more than that because those teams still exist. And each year, those teams add more and more. So if you do the cumulative number, we're looking at multiple hundreds of opportunities saved through that advocacy, and that afforded me the opportunity to have the job I have now with Tracksmith. They noticed the work that I was doing. I was not, I was doing this on a volunteer basis, pretty much the entire time during COVID. And I was kind of wondering, what was going to come from, this work. And then, the opportunity kind of, came down. And I feel like apparel company that focuses on running said, hey, we love what you're doing and we would love to kind of support you moving forward in your work. And so that's kind of how I got my current job, which I'm really appreciative of.
There's this book about the hero's journey, right? And one of the most important critical moments in the hero's journey is the answer to the call, right? You can
Mhm.
either say hello or you could say bye bye, hang up the phone. You were like, okay, okay, right? Why do you think you didn't hang up that phone?
I tried to hang up the phone. I'm so serious. Like,
You tried, but
be-
it didn't, it wasn't
yeah,
successful.
yeah, I tried because I remember after Brown, William and Mary's team got cut, and people were reaching out to me, tagging me on Twitter, second, third. I was like, guys, I don't know how to help
I
them.
just
Like,
wrote an article. I'm just the
I,
author.
yeah, I'm just an author. You know what I'm saying? I wrote an article on Medium. It went viral. I wasn't anticipating that. You know what I'm saying? That was back when stuff could go viral on Twitter before Mr. Elon decided to mess with the algorithm. So yeah, so I was like, guys, I don't really know what to do. And then not too long after that, the University of Minnesota announced that they were cutting their program. And at that point, I was like, oh shit, this is about to be a tidal wave. Like all these, like, because University of Minnesota, they're part of the Big Ten. It's like that's a major school, huge football program. I'm like, yo, it's getting like the schools are getting bigger, like the names are getting bigger.
Hmm.
We're about to see a decimation of the sport. And so that's when I was like, okay, I got to do something. And so I then said, okay. And I remember I organized a group Zoom call between the University of Minnesota folk and the William and Mary folk. And I was like, um, I don't really know, what, I'm doing here, but this is kind of the strategy that Brown used because Brown organized themselves. So they had an organizing group and I was in conversation with them, but then I wrote the article and then the article kind of helped to catapult the stuff that the Brown organizing team was doing because it was a media like component. Um, Whereas like Brown was trying to do like, behind the scenes, like, I mean, the alumni and parents that were trying to do, talk to trustees, talk to, they were trying to do behind the scenes work, which, nothing wrong with that. But I think what they were missing at that point was the kind of visible external portion that I provided through my article. So I remember that first meeting I had with William and Mary and with the University of Minnesota parents, student, and alumni. I had the Brown organizers on the call, and they kind of explained their process. And then I kind of borrowed the Brown model, in the organizing that I helped lead for William and Mary and for the University of Minnesota. And yeah, kind of just figured it out, as we went.
You know what I
Yeah.
think is beautiful though? I think there's a beauty in the figuring it out.
Mm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. It also was beauty in figuring out because I was broke at the time. So like I was, no, I'm so
Wait.
serious. So I was, another reason why I was able to do this was it was COVID. So the job that I had a part-time job, near Princeton. I was working for this company called Mathematica Policy Research. They administer government studies. And so I was on an FDA food study, where, field researchers would go and collect data from elementary schools about nutritional habits. I was in charge of helping to assist those field researchers. COVID happened. There's no field like work happening, so there's no need for the field assistant. So I got laid off. And so when I was doing all this activism work, I had time because I didn't have a job, And so what I did to make ends meet was I tutored online, and I also like had this other like part-time education thing online that I did, and I kind of figured I got rid of my car, and I was all right. I can live. I figured out the amount of money I needed to like live at the base level. I went to the grocery store once a month because it was COVID and I wasn't trying to be around people like that. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the grocery store once a month. We're gonna get all the bulk stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I kept I try to keep my expenses as minimal as possible. Um, and yeah, it was all right. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna tutor just to make enough money so I can, pay my rent and buy my food. And that's it. Um, and so all my other time, during that period was kind of devoted to, this work. Yeah, that's kind of how I made it shake.
But the payoff for that is like now, having a full-time job with this role that was made for you in a way, right? It definitely
Yeah,
was one
yeah.
that
Made for me.
But I think, and I want to get back to something that the whole reason that inspired this, me wanting to just reach out to you and talk to you, and hopefully people like this might not be my typical episode where we're going through like how you did this or how you got this job, or but I think this is very important just for anyone's dream driving journey, just seeing how like how life can take you places you never know when you answer that call, right?
Mm,
For you, how were you keeping up with your own, like, you had this one dream of wanting to help people, then you also had this dream of just wanting to be big in track, right?
hmm.
How was your own athletic dreams running parallel to just life's ups and downs? And then I want us to talk about this tweet that you, not tweet anymore. Is it called a tweet if it's on X? Is
I
it?
still
Is
call
it?
it a tweet. I still
All
call it
right.
a
So
tweet. So
let's talk about
yeah,
just like talk to me about
yeah,
like where was track at in your life personally during these years post Princeton?
yeah. So post Princeton, I never gave up the dream. I have organized my life since I've graduated in a way to allow for track to still exist, whether or not I actually was actively pursuing it or not. So I've had times during these 15, these 12 years since we graduated.
Damn, we old.
Um, I know, listen, no, we're seasoned, we're seasoned.
Yeah.
Hey, people call, oh, whatever.
I know, I'm just joking. We not old.
Someone
We
thought I
young
was
and
in my
vibrant.
20s the other day, and I was like, oh, thank you. And they said I had a smile like Julia Roberts. So I was like, I take it. But in these 12 years, I've had times where even though I still had the dream or the goal there, nothing around my life made pursuing that dream make sense. And so there are times where I had all but given up. And I have had those times several times where wasn't training, wasn't doing anything.
It's more than a week. Could have been months at a time, maybe even
Yeah, no,
years.
yeah, yeah. Not, it was never years, but there was definitely months at a time where it was like I didn't do nothing. I wasn't, and I should have, I mean, most other like people who are not delusional would have been like, all right, you know what? Let's just not, let's just call it what it is. But I think what drove me to get back each time was like, I'm not trying to go out like this. Like this isn't what I wanted the story to end with. Um, and so I kind of fought back and figured out a way to fight back. Um, several times. I think about three times I've kind of fought back from the abyss. Um, so, in
What did the
that, like
abyss look like?
the abyss looked like not doing a single track workout in a couple years. Had like dealing with chronic, Achilles injury, hamstring issues, not knowing how to get beyond them, um, not having, the financial resources to kind of deal with those issues. And I think in the pre-COVID era too, it was it was tougher to get a fully remote kind of or more flexible job if you didn't have kind of like an IT kind of hard skill set, um, which I didn't. Um, and so in retrospect, I could have still pursued, you know, jobs that would have, paid me, a certain amount that would have still given me the desired flexibility. Like my job at Princeton, I was still working, I wasn't necessarily working 40 hours, but I was working 30, 35. I was still working a good amount. But that job, since I created it, was very flexible. So I was able to was I was able to kind of like leave in the middle of the day, do my workout, come back. I would sometimes come back to like the office after everyone was gone and like finish projects, which is great because nobody was there. So, I was able to kind of do what I needed to
You're
do.
able to focus. I
Uh,
know you get distracted a little bit easily. You know, you hear
um,
you might hear a song come on, you start making a
and
dance. You
so it's bad, and it also like my desk at Chris Service is like in an open area, and everybody want to come over and talk about their kids and their baseball
know.
program or whatever. It's like I love that for you, I love that, but I really need to
Yeah.
get this done. So yeah, so it was nice to have that kind of flexibility, but. I didn't think that I would be able to kind of pursue, elite running with kind of a traditional 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 7, kind of job. And so I kind of pursued opportunities that gave me a little bit more kind of like room. But there was a trade-off for that. And so I think, but then I also think there was, you know, I'm smart, resourceful. I could have made it work. I didn't necessarily trust myself to, work a traditional job and then still get the workouts done after work or before work, which I would have done. I mean, in 2019, instead of working a traditional job, I was working like 4 or 5 like
But
part-time
who
gigs type.
says, and I think that's for our
Yeah,
generations, especially like we're at this like crossroads of like, am I supposed to? And if I don't, can I just be okay with it? I mean, I feel like that all the time
yeah,
now. It's just like,
yeah,
who made the rules? And
yeah.
can you
No,
just make
no.
your own rules, you know?
No, I totally get that. I just think that it's like, what's the path of least resistance, right? It is like I was spending all this time and energy doing all these other things. Whereas it would have been, I would have actually saved a lot of energy had I, figured out, one thing, to do, that's, and still believe and trust in myself enough that I will figure it out by any means necessary. Because I figured out how to make ends meet by any means necessary. So why do you think, oh, if I have a regular job, I'm not going to like, I'm not going to like be able to train? Like, no, you can and you would, and like, and believe in yourself. And so I think not having kind of, belief in my own kind of, commitment, made me shy away from opportunities that would have provided me with a little bit more stability and also wouldn't have been as draining and taxing on,
Mm.
my time. I mean, I remember I was working 2 part-time jobs in 2019 that were paying me so little it wasn't even worth like the time to go. And they were in 2 different parts of the city. So
It's
I was
like
like,
work smarter, not harder, right? Like if you
yeah, I
had
was,
just had one
yeah, just
annoying job for a chunk of time, you could
yes.
have had better.
Yes, just go work for like some like place that like I don't they don't really care about you. You don't care about them. Just go clock in, do type on the computer, whatever, whatever. Leave right at 4:30. Like, oh, you want to go to social hour? Nah. You know what I mean? Like
I
leave
gotta go
right
to the
at 4:30.
track because I'm trying to get to the
Yeah, like
Olympics.
yeah, exactly. So I think that I think I have that has kind of shaped a lot of the journey. But what kind of kept me like in it going back was just this idea, this notion of like I believe, and that is true, that I am a talented athlete, and I think the tweet that you mentioned.
I'm gonna read it to you because you
All right,
might
cool.
have read it yourself, but I want you to hear it being read
All
to
right,
you. So
go ahead.
so let's read it. Let me open it up, honey. This is the first one, right? That you sent me.
Yeah,
Let
the
me open
first
it
one, and
up.
it was originally on Instagram, but then I switched it over to Twitter X,
Okay.
because I wanted I posted to my Instagram story, and it seemed like it resonated with people, so I put it on X, Twitter, so that other people could see it because everyone doesn't see Instagram, and Instagram stories are only 24 hours. So
Okay. And we're kind of winding down with this interview, so I think just coming full circle, this is going to be a good moment for us, okay? So
nice.
this is what Dancing Dinks on X, right? This is what you wrote. I just wanted to express some gratitude that 15 years after first running 1:48, that's 1 minute 48 seconds, that at the age of 36, I have gotten there again. I never would have thought that I would be running for this long and still enjoying it. I don't talk about my running on here because this journey has been a personal one. I share a lot of myself on here, but I have preferred the quiet builds over the public one in recent years. I look at these years and think about the many different things, often myself, that got in the way of greater potential. I also think about all that I've learned, experienced, and the great things that have happened along the way. This year has been my best year training, my most dedicated, some of my best training marks. So I was confused why my times were stuck at 151. Recently got some answers health wise, and my times are starting to rebound. The ego wanted more, he'll get his day. But I also wanted to give myself permission to recognize that hitting 148 15 years later is significant. Grateful. And then you posted your time since 2007 in the 800 meters, from 2007 to 2025. Ah, yes. Let me read wait, you had a second one. Okay, let me read this part. The gaps in the years of my world athletics profile represent years that I didn't run a race. Some of those years I didn't even complete a track workout. Injury, doubt, and different forms of give up all being culprits. 3 times I fought back from the abyss, each time more difficult than the last, chasing a quiet promise that I made to myself long ago. Was that young Russell? Was that young Russell? That I would give myself the opportunity to be all that I could be. I didn't know my message this morning would resonate with so many of you. For that, I am grateful. For the longest time, I felt that I needed to keep this journey hidden from view to protect it from the external. Today has shown that there's beautiful support out there if you let it in. And Russell, my friend, that was the what I said. I saw it and I was just so inspired. I said, my vibes told me to get you on the show. This was yesterday, right? But this is the quickest turnaround I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna make it happen. And I just think in that for anyone listening in, I guess we could talk about a lot more, but like what do you want people to take from seeing that for their own lives?
Yeah,
After hearing that being read by someone to you, what do you hope that inspires in the person listening to us today chat about many things?
you know, it is different hearing it versus reading it because I mean, those are my words, but
Yeah.
hearing it, like, wow, those are
You
wow,
sound like a
that's.
poet.
I'm like, that's all profound. Look at the words, I'm saying with the prose, I'm
Right?
saying. I think, believing in what you're capable of and that you have the ability, the opportunity, um, to create, amazing outcomes. It may not be exactly the outcome that you imagine, but it can still be amazing if you give yourself the opportunity. And giving yourself the opportunity means, investing the time, energy, resources, towards, whatever that goal is. A pursuit of a goal, may not always be linear. For some it may be, but for others it may not. Lord knows mine really hasn't. And I used to look at, these times listed on my World Athletics profile with a sense of kind of dread because, the fact that I've run a time now that I first ran when I was 21, just turned 36, 3 weeks ago. That indicates that, I have had a lot of potential, and there are I mean I have run faster than that in 2017 18 2016 17 18 I did run faster, and I was starting to creep up to the elite level. In 2016 I was number 15 in the US, but then I got injured, and then kind of there was this spiral, and it was hard for me to dig out of it. But so I look at that and I'm like, oh gosh, you know, if someone's able to produce this time these many years later, I should have and could have done XYZ when I was younger. Um, you can think about that, but you can also think about, wow, look at what this ability and talent has allowed. It's allowed for this longevity. It's allowed for, me to be able to use my body in this way. And for other people, you know, your gifts, your talents, may be more profound than you may realize or give yourself credit for. Um, and so if you just do, the work, put in the solid effort to contribute to that talent, to that gift, the outcome, the reward, it's more likely to be um, something significant than if you don't give yourself that opportunity. And so I think that's what I would want to kind of, share and impart. Um, with others. And another thing that hearing you read back my words. I know you know this, Raina. A lot of people listening don't know because a lot of people don't know me. At Princeton, you have to write a thesis in order to graduate. And even if I back up from that, when I was a kid, I had trouble with my writing. When I got to Princeton, I found out that I had a reading disability, and then with my thesis, I struggled, getting my thesis done. I actually did not hand it in on time and handed it in, the next year, and then graduated. So I'm still part of the class of 2013, but technically I graduated in the very beginning of 2014. And I was really ashamed of that for a long time. And it's not something necessarily to be proud of, but it's something
Mm-hmm.
that like did happen. And I did, fight through that and,
Mm-hmm.
and duly graduated. So to hear like words,
And you've
that
written
I've written,
articles, like you would
I
type in Russell
know,
Dinkins on Google, your articles will show up. Like nobody would have ever known, right? Like unless you
yeah.
went digging.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been published in different publications. The Brown article, went
Mm.
viral, these words. And so something that was such a struggle for me for so long, um, now that it is, kind of been a vehicle for, is it something that was like an impediment has been an access provider. It's kind of a cool full circle moment for me. So that also, for listeners, like, there are things that, you may view as challenges for yourself that may actually be your greatest opportunities. Um, so yeah.
I love that. I love that. And it's funny because I think in that prep document, that prep email I sent you, I had the theme of this is dreams don't die. But I think it's like more like cleats don't die, right? Like you could pick up those cleats any day and like whether it's you're gonna go back to your high school times or the best time you ever had. And like there's just so much when you just don't allow, like you said, like you don't ever give up 100%. I think that's the whole theme of this whole podcast, right? Like going from park to drive, you have to go from park, reverse, right? You got to get through neutral, which is times where you might not be doing anything, but you're still trying to get somewhere to get to drive. And it's a whole like, it's going to go back and forth, right? Like you can't have a car and park all the time and you can't be in drive all the time. You have to kind of go through these states of life. And I just hope that for anyone listening in, just hearing a bit, because this is just a part of Russell's story, right? There's so many other things we have talked about, but just thank you for sharing this part of it because I hope that it just inspires someone of like those dreams that you had as a kid. I'm such a believer in like we always have been who we are, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Sometimes you just have to allow that to come through.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
And,
you always, and it's gonna evolve. And those little things, like, I look at my sons and I see these little bits of their personality, but it's just a bit like it's just a little tiny part. Like, I don't know how that's gonna evolve, but it's beautiful when you see things, when you're able to now process, like, even for you realizing like words were something you struggled with for so long, right?
Mhm.
Even you looking in that mirror with your mom behind you and she's trying to help you tell yourself you love yourself, right? Those are words. Although they're not
Mhm.
written words, they're like words you articulated.
Mhm.
But, words and your ability to express that evolved. And now look how much more people you're impacting by just being able to finally be able to get those words out.
Just before and I wanted to add something to your car analogy. You said sometimes, you got to reverse. Sometimes it's in park. Sometimes in drive. Um, Sometimes you're not even in the car. You've gotten out the car.
Right?
Um,
And you're just looking
it's
at it like, damn, that's a nice car. That's an ugly car.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, you're out the car. You're like, dang, I got out that car. Why did I get out the car? I got out of that car 2 months ago, 5 months ago, 2 years ago. You can still get back in that car. Like give yourself grace and permission to get back in the car, and to reinvest in what it is you want to achieve. And give yourself permission and grace. There's another friend, mutual friend that we have. I remember she said years ago, she posted something about, yeah, she was pursuing, some big goal. And she said, yes, I'm going to pursue this goal, but I'm going to love myself along the way,
Mm,
and I think that's like so important because I don't know for y'all, but for me, it is so easy for me to beat myself up and for me to like be like, F it, this is dumb. I'm going to just sit here and be sad. You know what I mean? And it's real easy to do that. And Lord knows the world wants you to do that. You can have your moment. My mom always says, but but don't let that moment have you. So like if you're out of the car, give yourself grace and permission. But okay, I got out the car. It's okay. But I also can give myself permission to get back in the car.
Love that. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Russell, for sharing this part of your dream driving journey. Please tell our listeners where if they want to learn more about you, if they want to stay connected with you on the social medias, where can they connect and where can they help be a support to your cause if even, desired.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. So, they can find me on Instagram, Twitter, or X at Dancing Dinks. So that's dancing, the way that you traditionally spell it, and then Dinks, D as in David, INKS, Dancing Dinks. Or you just type in my name, Russell Dinkins, it should pop up. Um, you can also find my work through the Tracksmith Foundation at tracksmithfoundation.org. We have a web page with the work that we've done, and then also a donation link if you want to support, because we need some more funds. I've been meaning to put together a personal website for years, and I've kind of dragged my feet on it. I need to do that. So it has inspired me to to kind of do that step. But for now, social, and then also Tracksmith Foundation. And then you can find me also on LinkedIn if that is your preferred method of communication, Russell Dinkins. And if you type that into LinkedIn, you should be able to find my profile.
Thank you so much, Russell. And I'll link to all those stuff in our show notes today. And just once again, I appreciate you so much, my friends.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Raina. This is awesome. Thanks. Keep the dreams
And
and drive, y'all.
all right, so that's a wrap for this week's episode with Russell Dinkins. I hope you enjoyed hearing his dream driving journey as well as his keys to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please stop what you're doing and hit that subscribe button. And if this is your first time listening and you haven't already followed us on social media, you can find us at Dreams and Drive across the board on all social media platforms. And lastly, if you want to be part of our email community and get weekly email updates, join our newsletter, The Road Trip. You can join by going to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. As always, guys, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode.